am who I am by accepting 1000% who I am, where I am, not hiding, knowing that life is over here on this side of this terror barrier, just the newness of change and upgrading my language, there's going to be fear. And that means I'm doing everything right. If I'm over here, it's not so frightening. It's comfortable. You're building, you're expanding, the ego's protecting. I think over here in the expansion can be really terrifying.
Let's talk about change. The truth is, nothing changes unless you change. And if you want to step into your full potential, you need to surround yourself with the right people. That is exactly why I have created the InPowered Life community. Within this community, I'm going to be teaching you the exact same mindset and energy practices that I have taught my clients that are paying me well over six figures, including CEO owners of billion-dollar organizations and professionals at the very top of their fields. You're going to get access to 2 live virtual calls every single month with me, where we're going to dive into mindset, energy practices, spiritual principles that are going to help you thrive in every area of your life. Can't make a call? No worries. We're going to provide you with a recording so that you can catch up anytime. Plus, you're going to have the opportunity for direct coaching from me and to learn from incredible guest speakers who are going to share their best practices and growth. Remember, you become the people that you spend the most time with. So why not spend time within a community that is going to elevate you and your life? For an introductory $499, you're going to get a full year of support and coaching alongside high performers who are committed to expanding their careers, their growth, their finances, and to elevate their overall quality of life. Just click the link in the show notes or log into rudyricksteins.com to lock in your spot and start your transformation today. Welcome to the Empowered Life Podcast, a space dedicated to spreading the message that you have the power within to create everything you seek.
So if you're ready to enroll in a new kind of higher learning, the kind that leads to true personal freedom, then hang here with us.
We're your hosts, Rudy and Aniston Ricksteins, and this is the Empowered Life. Welcome to the InPowered Life Podcast. My name is Rudy Ricksteins. I'm your host, and today we are joined by the incredible Dana Grant. Dana is one of my dearest friends, somebody that I got to meet about 2 years ago at an event, and then we connected again at another event, and since then we have been fast friends. I had the honor and the privilege of being on her incredible podcast, The Dana Grant Show, which is a top 10 podcast. We had one of the most beautiful conversations, and I always like to mention some of these incredible moments because after that conversation, not only did I feel like my life had been enriched, we had a beautiful moment, but I just got so many, countless messages from people just saying that they really loved and appreciated and valued what we had to say or share. In fact, I got one yesterday morning or this morning, I don't remember, from somebody who had just listened to the episode and said, oh my gosh, I had just listened to it. I really loved this episode. And Dana encouraged me to reach out and just to tell you how much I appreciate it. And so the messages are still coming so many months later.
I get so many from this one conversation about, wow, I just heard that Rudy, you were talking to Rudy. I'm like, oh, I know. I said, yeah, I'm going to re-release it. It's just, I'm getting a flood of new, it's funny how that energetic wave comes in again. And I said, reach out to Rudy. I said, let him know how incredible he is. Yeah. Because I already know this.
You are a gift, Dana. So much. I'm so excited to have you on the show. Welcome to the Empowered Life Podcast. For the benefit of our audience, you not only have a top 10 podcast, you're the co-founder of Cali'flour Foods, which is a multi-million-dollar brand. You're the author of The Truth Within the Lie. You're a life coach, business coach, and my favorite, an intuitive coach who creates transformation, not only in individuals, but also within businesses. We play in such similar spaces. We are two people who are immersed in creation, manifestation, energy, impact, transformation. And so we could truly just speak for hours. I am wanting today to dive into a topic that is really prevalent, I think, that is out in the world. And for me to set the stage for this, what I would like to do is kind of just bring in a little bit about you, your past, a little bit about the book that you've written. And I'm going to start off by just letting the audience know the book, The Truth within the lie is really about 14 universal truths that you've spoken about through stories. And I want to encourage people to grab a copy of the book so that they can learn, because I think we learn most through stories. Where I want to start is not by taking away from the book necessarily and preventing somebody from reading it because we tell all 14 stories on the podcast today. But what I really want to focus in on is just a little bit about your life and your experience as it relates to how you put this book together, why you compiled some of the stories that you did. I'm going to focus in on an opening direction, and you can take it anywhere you want. But I believe that so many people in the world today are living this lie. We've been sold this story, this narrative that we have to hustle, that we have to grind, that we have to achieve, and it is a very dominant masculine energy. You have openly expressed that you lived in that dominant energy. You were very masculine, you were very powerful. For the benefit of the audience, you're an incredibly attractive woman. You are established, you are successful, and yet you say you were very masculine and that you would hustle and grind and achieve. And again, I want to bring this back up. You were a lobbyist, a negotiator. You created and founded a multi-million-dollar company. And yet today you teach people to create harmony and coherence and to move through life with ease and flow. Tell us a little bit about how did you move from that masculine energy? How is a woman grounded in masculine energy, and how can we create that shift?
I love that question. There's so many dimensions like you said, I could start here and go with, but I'm going to go intuitively, because I ignored my intuition most of my life. I second guessed everything. That masculine energy I utilized, and it was trauma driven. And I didn't recognize that it was all trauma driven. I set records as a lobbyist. Everything I did, and then I would self-sabotage because I would never rise above my worth. So I had to level back down. And then I would gear up with that masculine energy, that what I thought was, a gift of being able to hustle, my drive, my work ethic. And then I got sick, and I got really sick. And through that, I continued to hustle. I'd be literally getting out of the hospital after enormous amounts of IVs, sometimes being put in comas because I had irretractable migraines. For those that, and I don't put a lot of this in my book. What's so interesting, you said, I wrote the book meaning to tell all the stories, but I give little stories. And what I've given is the modalities and 14 universal laws on how to work through. And if they can identify with any of those stories. But the next book will be the unfolding of probably, it just didn't seem to go that direction. So I think that it's important to know that sometimes when we're working in our masculine energy, we are in overdrive and we are in push and we are chasing something that probably, and I'm sure people feel this when they get there, they're like, well, is this all there is? And I know, Rudy, you've talked about this. It's like, wow, I did all that and I achieved it. And then what's next? And I think I crashed and burned out so many times that the illness stepped in, and that was a full-time management. And then I did the same pendulum swinging there until I finally just surrendered and learned how to receive, which was my feminine energy. My left side of my body, all the injuries I had were on the right side of my body. There's so many paradigms that I can identify that were going on. I had no clue. I just thought, work harder, work faster, be smarter. And I continue to crash and burn.
So I want to go a little deeper in everything you said. And for anyone that's listening to this, you've already answered my question. But the reason I'm going to go back is because I really want to hammer on a point that I think is so beautiful. And when I say so beautiful, I mean that your life's work, how you show up today, because I do believe how we show up is how we lead, and how we lead is through example. And you are the example of an incredibly powerful individual who happens to be a woman who has the balance of the masculine and the feminine. Now, there's still going to be somebody listening to this saying, I don't understand. I was born a man. I don't have feminine energy. Or I was born a woman. Like, what are you talking about masculine? You've answered it, but I want you to break it down a little more for the audience. What do you mean when you say, I was in my masculine? And how could somebody identify that they're either in their masculine or in their feminine, or too heavily swayed in one or the other?
Well, I'll keep it simple. The definition, the formal definition, but in my simple definition, your life force energy, the right side of your body is your masculine side. It's where your go time. This is where I go. This is where I do. This is what I achieve. And I had that muscle really built up. What I had on the left side of my body is my feminine energy. That's where I receive. This is where there's flow, nurture, expansion. There's not so much of a directive, but it does require us to be able to receive. I didn't ask for help. I didn't think I needed help. That was really shut down on me. So I could hold space for a lot of masculine energy, which meant power. So I think that masculine energy is sometimes where our power shows up. They can't really see me, but my arms are going in this life force energy straight up on my right-hand side. And that's where I was always focused. Where am I going to next? I don't look at that anymore. Now it's like, can I receive more flow, more nurture? What would it look like to trust this process and stay in my power, knowing that I am attracting everything to me through flow, through my meditation, through not hustling, through not this life force energy, do, can, in this expansion of flow that I am calling everything in, and everything that's happened to me was meant to happen exactly the way it was. It unfolded beautifully. And I get to take those life circumstances and work with that. So nothing is working against me. Everything is working for me. And then that harmony, that balance of the feminine, masculine come into play. And it is so beautiful when it does, when we can trust that even, like you said, male, female, we both have this masculine, feminine side of receiving and doing and giving and taking.
I don't think that a lot of people, and I mean, I'm generalizing, but I don't think that a lot of people pay enough attention to the masculine and the feminine energy that does reside within us, because we need an equal switch between them. And there is a time for pushing, and there's a time for getting something across the line. But there's almost like there's so much value and power in being able to pull back and being in the flow and being in the receivership and being in the trust. But people want to be in the doing, because that's what we're told, that's where we get our worth. What would you say to somebody that's listening to this and they're heavily in the hustle mentality, male or female, and you've piqued their curiosity now and they want to be able to learn? What kind of skill set would you give somebody to be able to, because you used a word that I love so much, and we'll talk about it later in the show. It's literally on the wall behind you. But you can't trust the process if you haven't gone through the process enough times. And so there's a step before. What would you say somebody should do?
Again, I'm going to drop into that interesting, and this one well, because we speak the same language. The 95% of what we do is subconscious. It's built in. We have stories that we've created and we're navigated there. We've got this 5% consciousness. I'm going to go a step further in this masculine. We push ourselves. Think about you're pushing yourself as hard as you think you can. And that is only to 40%. We still have another 60% that we haven't tapped into yet. And I could quote a million, research papers on this. But the fact is, if they're listening, I always like to break it down and keep it like a visual. I want them to see the visual that we are a magnetic field. There's a universe dancing inside of you. Tap in to the inside, not the exterior, the outside. I rarely am tapped in anymore to the external, which meant I was a people pleaser. And that meant I had to hustle very hard to make sure everyone was happy with me. So that would be probably working very much in my masculine energy. So there's things that can show up in our lives. And if people can identify with that, it's like, oh, wow, well, what would it feel like to receive? What would it feel like to trust? Oh, I didn't trust. I was born an intuitive and didn't trust. I second guessed everything. I sabotaged everything. I have more crash and burns and more billions of dollars that have gone through these fingers. And my wake up call was, I think, late to the party. I was in my late 40s, now being in my 60s, but it's the perfect timing. It's not too late. We're never too old. People say, oh, well, 60 is the new 30. No, 60 is the new 60. And I'm just getting started at this level of work. And it's so exciting because I believe this energetic, this whole universe, and that I'm tapping into, what's available to me is like, wow, every morning I wake up, I can barely get through my meditation because I'm so excited at the possibilities I'm attracting and it is not our job, as you know, to know this outcome. I am, I always say married to the process, divorce the outcome. And what that looks like is we cannot, the universe and God is going to create something so much bigger than I can see or do. in this limited space I've got. So trusting the process is absolutely staying present, staying committed to your commitment and your practices, being consistent every day, and then letting that momentum build and expand. And I mean, and we must look at our commitments. What are you being committed to? If I'm committed to Netflix all day long and I'm like, oh, I trust the process and the universe is going to bring me everything I want. Well, it's not. We have to take action too, which action is in our masculine energy. What are you doing to build a life you want? What are you doing to build what you're passionate about? People say passion doesn't matter. I would disagree with that. I'm incredibly passionate about this work. And I'm incredibly passionate about tapping into my intuition because I get so enthusiastic because I can see. And then I come back and I'm like, don't give them the golden ticket. Do not give them the answer. It never works, Rudy. They don't want the answer. They want the process. They want to be able to trust their process and make those shifts and those awakenings, because when they do and they have those aha moments, they're never going back.
You've said so many things that I could dive down, but I want to go down a very particular train of thought for the benefit of the audience, because I know that they're just going to eat this up. As a reminder, you're listening to the InPowered Life Podcast. The power lies within to have and to be and to do and to achieve. And here we have somebody who is beautifully articulating what does it look like to step into your inner knowing, your inner power, and to leverage all of the tools that are available to you. Literally, as quoted by Dana, the universe is around you, and you can literally tap into all of that from within. Dana, for anybody who is listening to you, you're in your 60s. For anybody that is watching us on the YouTube channel, you are vibrant. You are the example of what does it look like to embody this level of work, because the energy, the excitement oozes out of every word, out of your mannerisms, how you show up, what you do. And so I'm going to give the audience a little more, because I think that there's somebody who could still be saying, but give me a step. If you want to step into your knowing and your guidance and your intuition of who you are, the human brain needs evidence. We need to stack evidence that it works. And the only way to pay attention to what works is try something, see how did it work out, and then look at the evidence of what it is that you did. And so if you are too heavily swayed in the masculine or too heavily swayed in the feminine, and you want to create a shift to create that trust in the process, you have to do it and be aware of what you're doing, so that in the presence you have your power to say, oh, that worked, that didn't work. And a tool that I love to use for myself, that I've taught for almost 27 years now, is to ask yourself a question and then pay attention to how does the information resonate within you. Is that information expansive or does it feel restrictive? And then follow that, because that's going to leverage your intuition. That's going to leverage your guidance. That's going to tell you whether you're in too much of the hustle or whether you're in too much of the Netflix. And you'll be able to learn a little more of what is inside of you.
I love that you just said that. And it's the truth. If we've got this universe inside of us, and we know that everything is energy, that this energetic field, and we could break it down to chakras. There's so many different modalities we could talk about, but we have these energy fields in our body, and we can feel trust. We can feel people. I'm going to add an extra in here. People often say, I trust my gut. I challenge that. Why would you trust your gut? It's attached to your spleen, which processes all your fears. A lion chasing you? Then don't trust your gut, because you want to trust your intuition. It sits differently in the body. It feels different than your gut. Your gut is going to produce fear. And if I'm trusting my gut all the time, I'm in fear all the time. And people do live in fear all the time. I mentioned that people, even when you're pushing yourself very hard, they're at their 40% capacity. We still have 60 more percent available to us. And we already know the brain, we're not even tapping into what is statistically 3%. We can expand. And I think that's really exciting. But the tools that I use, and again, I like to keep it simple. Even in co-founding Cali'flour Foods, it was keep it simple, 4 fresh ingredients. I still love to keep it simple. I don't know if it's my dyslexia, my ADHD, however, how I worked as a lobbyist. I rewrote their scripts of what their field people did because it was too complicated and I couldn't memorize. But what I could do was break it down and how it mattered to me, and powerful little impacts that I did, because I set records and they wanted to know how I did it. Well, and this is how I do it now. I get up in the morning. The first thing I do is I go into the mirror and I say, what do you need from me today, Dana? What do you need from me today? And I'm going to get an energy hit in my body. Somewhere it's going to say I'm tired, or I'm frightened, or I'm overwhelmed, or I'm scared, or I'm excited. And I'm going to second, what do you need? What do you need to do? And then I know whether I can move with it, or do I need to slow down? And our body does know the way. My body, if I'm trusting my body, and I think we have to get to know our body all over again. If we've been living out of trust and we're living in someone else's stories, and we know this, we see this, Rudy, every day, in the work we do, people show up and it's not even their story they're carrying. It might be their mother's or a teacher. It might be something you randomly heard. I mean, at 15, someone said I had big hips and, I needed to sort of for 20 years over that. It doesn't take much to create a story if we've taken an emotional impact. Our job is to rewrite those stories, to challenge those stories. So what do you need from me today? A story starts coming up. I can feel it. I know the stories. Our job is to be a detective, an identifier. And I can feel when the stories are coming up. I can feel when I want to shut down, when something big is going to happen now. I know those are going to be the days that I'm feeling probably a little low, a little blue. Everything's feeling just a little bit disjointed. I'm overwhelmed. I can feel the old stories coming in again, maybe some sabotage. And I say, this is so interesting that this is happening. And then I change that relationship to the story. That's our job. The stories aren't going to change. It's our job to identify and then say, not my story anymore. Never was my story. And I talk to versions of myself, and I did for years because I have a trauma-filled life. Similar to you, I've had some very big experiences, almost lost my legs. There was drug. I mean, there is so much I look back on and I'm like, wow, I left most of that out of my book, but it just didn't seem relevant. Felt more like trauma dumping. And I thought, well, this is what I did to get through. And if anyone has a story that isn't serving their life, that isn't moving that needle forward, they're not getting what they want or what they need, and they're constantly in this cycle of hustling and doing, look in the mirror. What do you need from me today? Well, I don't need that story again. Well, what story is that? Well, we're doing the same thing every day. We're not getting the results we need. Yeah, break it down. Look at your life. Write it out. I love to write it out. Even though I'm left-handed, I write upside down and backwards. I tend to write things out less these days, but I found other ways to do it, just like my book. It took me a long time to write that book because I just, my shoulders blown from cycling for, and I'm like, I'm not going to write the book by sitting down and writing it. And I don't type. So there's two strikes. I had to find a way that I could find an editor that I could do that book, write out my notes, and then channel that book. And that's exactly what I did. And it isn't anything that I thought it would be.
Gosh, I have, again, so many questions. I'm trying to think through the lens of what is the audience going to want to know most based on everything that you've said, because there's so many incredible points. You've twice mentioned now that, we only use 40% of our potential. And I would love to know from your vantage point. And, again, I'm trying to sum up all the different questions I have because I think there's just so much value in everything you said. But I would love to know what kind of tool or technique could you offer to somebody that's listening to this that may very well be a really high achiever and they're starting to think, oh my gosh, what if I have another 60%? But we've just spoken about, are you too much in the masculine? Do you need to pull in the feminine? And now we're saying, but you've got more in the tank. And so what kind of tool would you offer to somebody who wants to be able to leverage that extra potential with not going too far into the masculine?
Let's just keep it simple, because this is what, again, when you ask me questions, my brain expands with all the information and all the data because I'm a data junkie. And then I go back to what I actually do and what works. And that is as I simplify it. And when we look at, I've got 60% more in the tank, and I know that doing more doesn't work. So how can I balance out in this flow? How do I call in what I need? Where are my connections? Who am I talking to? Who am I surrounded with? Let's go back to the basics. Who said, the 5 people that you surround yourself with are the 5 people that, they said, if they're drinkers, you're going to drink. If they're smokers, you're going to smoke. I mean, you really will acclimate there. And so where are you situated in your life? If you hate your job and you've talked about it for 10 years, what are you afraid of? Where's your biggest fear? Your fear may not be about that job at all. It might be about money. It might be your relationship to money. It might be your parents said money doesn't grow on trees, and you're so terrified of being without money, and you're living in such lack and scarcity. Has nothing to do with the job. Has everything to do with your core relationship to that core fear and that core belief. And the core fear that you're dealing with is always going to be your core injury. whatever that core injury is, I go right to that. So people, I hear a lot of stories, but I really go to where they're most consistent. So, and I think we have to listen to ourselves. Where are we the most consistent? If I'm complaining all day long, my life is pretty much going to show up and give me results 3 to 6 months from now of a life that doesn't change very much. We have to be proactive in our listening and keep in breaking that down and keeping it so stupid simple, because we will forget, because the stories are 95% powerful. And that ego is going to come in and say, but you remember you got hurt over there and you lost that company. Remember that? And you know what? Do you remember how that felt? And we're going to say, oh yeah, I do. Well, let's back off and let's just keep doing what we're doing, because man, this is much safer than that. So playing it safe looks like doing the same thing over and over again, and you're not getting the results you want. Living over and trusting in flow looks like I got no idea what I'm calling in. It's none of my business, but I'm so committed and I'm so consistent and I'm so passionate that I know this has got to be right. And that's trust. That's my intuition coming up and saying, we are on the right track. And the evidence might not show it yet, because it's, again, I'm not attached. And this is where people really get screwed up. I did everything you said for 2 weeks, and my life hasn't changed a bit. And I'm like, 2 weeks, huh? Well, how many years did it take you to get here? For me, it was close to 50. I imagine that every day just feels like Christmas. I'm just learning something. I'm expanding, and that soul just wants to expand. It doesn't even recognize the attack of the ego. It doesn't even know that. So my goal is to always stay in that heart energy and stay out of my ego energy that protected me and did a really good job for a long time. I just don't need that protection. When we start to heal, and I think healing is a big component here, when we start to identify those stories and know what keeps us safe and know what keeps holding us back, we have decisions to make. And that one decision can change your life. Maybe you have a multitude of decisions, but start with the small one. For me, I just lost a lot of weight. I gained it, then I lost it within a year, close to a person. It was like 85 pounds. I didn't look at the 85 pounds. I said, you know what you can do, Danny? You can start walking again. You're really great at food prep. Get back to, but I was healing out of some enormous trauma, and I didn't shame myself. Shaming myself and my old story of you have to be skinny did not work anymore. My whole system abandoned me. I had to focus on health, be the healthiest I could be. And day in and day out, I was consistent. If I stayed focused on that number, I was going to recklessly abandon it every day. But every day I could do one thing. I could walk. And every day I could walk a mile, then 2, then 3, then 5. Now I'm walking the Camino. I'm doing about 100 miles a day. And that's just the beginning. I can't wait to see where I'm at in 65, because I plan on bodybuilding. And I'm like, with very injured legs, from, medication. It is in my book. I don't go into expansive, but I will on podcast shows. And if you want to know, we can talk about that, because I think people need to know that things are not always how they appear.
Hey, it's Aniston Ricksteins here, and I want to ask you, have you ever wondered if there's more to your life and work than what you're doing right now? What if I told you that the universe is hiring and you were born to fill a role that will bring you true purpose and success? In my new #1 best-selling book, The Universe is Hiring, Discover the Role You Were Born to Fill, I'm going to show you exactly how to step into that role. This isn't just a book full of inspiration. It's a roadmap to help you start shifting into a more fulfilling life right now. You'll get clear on your unique purpose, learn how to align with your strengths, and take actionable steps towards the career and life that truly light you up. If you're ready to make a change and start living the life you were meant for, grab your copy today. Available anywhere you buy your books online, or click the link in the show notes.
I want to go back and touch on something, because I said I had so many questions just from that last rebuttal, but you touched on it again now. And that is the act of waking up every single morning and looking at yourself and asking, what does Dana need right now? Like what can I do for myself? You also have beautifully shared on the podcast already today, that you were in the hustle and grind and the doing and the achieving and the attacking and the taking, and you were very successful, but then your body broke down. And I believe that, for so many people, I know that that was my story. Hospitalized last year, almost died. Same thing, because I was too busy pushing and not listening. But creating the space to ask, like, what do I need right now? And then to listen and to take what it is that you need and to act, I think is such an invaluable tool, because so many people, they don't follow intuition. See, intuition is usually something that people will chalk up to, oh, well, this person is psychic, or this person can, see the future, or this is for the select few. I heard you on a podcast interview probably about 6 or 8 months ago. You said that at 15, you realized that, you had this incredible ability. You were born with it. But at 15, you called yourself a freak. And when you said the word, it kind of like jarred me to hear you to say that. But when you said it, I had that realization. I was like, there must be so many people that resonate with that. Like, oh, that's for them because they're different. I want to pivot a little bit, because what I love about you and what you do is you are a life coach, you're a business coach, but you're an intuitive coach. So you are supporting people in creating shifts and changes. Now, I want to ground this for a second. You do the bulk of your work in business. You've represented some really incredible organizations, but you're not scared to talk about intuition. You, on your podcast, will do readings where you'll pull a tarot card. You'll be on a phone call with someone and you'll be like, oh, I just feel like I need to pull a card. What's the energy saying? And I love that you don't shy away from that. What would you say to somebody right now who is questioning whether they are somebody who has an intuitiveness, whether everybody does, nobody does? Is it for the select few? Are we freaks? Are we not freaks? I would love your thoughts and opinions on it, along the lens of how you've been able to bring that into business without hiding that side of yourself.
Wow, that's a powerful question. I think a lot of times, I think it was Yoganda that said you have to burn through your karma as quick as possible. People believe in karma. People don't believe in karma. It doesn't matter. That's energy that we're using up, and you get to choose where you're using that up at. I was exhausted with navigating and hiding. And I didn't know. I led with it. Then I come back because people would say, oh, don't lead with that, too woo woo. And then, you can't be a Christian and you can't be that at the same time. And I'm like, really? I can't? And I believed all those stories. I get it every day. I probably get 500 messages a day. That's not a Christian belief. I can pretty much tell you anything, the intuitive hits that I'm getting is biblical, and anything spiritually across the board that I'm pulling in is guided. I don't read tarot. Nothing against people that do. I read intuition, and everyone's got it. Everyone's got it. Yes, I was born with being a seer, a little bit different. That means I can go ahead and I get to see things. And it's like, oh, but I also know God gave us free will. And that if I ask the right questions, they can pivot and change the destiny. It is not my job to step in and change the course. And there's I do not spiritually bypass. People think I'm reading their mind all the time. I don't have the energy for that, nor do I want to, nor am I interested. It's enough to deal with this and to sift through the people that want to work with me for the right reasons. But the people that they want to absolutely transform their life and they want expansion, you bet I'm going to ask the right questions. You bet I'm 1000% in. But I call people now, which I didn't used to. I called people that were hiding, just like me, wanted to know the answers, just like me. I think we're going to attract and call in where we are. The universe is just going to meet us there. And God's going to say, hey, you're not done yet. Level up. Where are we hiding in our lives? I was hiding. I did not want to claim it because you're right. I felt like a freak. I felt like I was alone. And trust me, I've never drank alcohol. I already felt alone enough that I never got invited to a lot of parties. People think that I'm so social, but my world was always very small. And it always felt that I was alone in this knowing. And it was, now I'm okay. I'm really good with that. I need that space to process. My meditation time, I'd never give up those hours. I wouldn't give up my garden hours. I wouldn't give up spending my morning watching the monarch butterfly this morning. I build that in, and it must be built in. I would burn out. My schedule's intense. I know your schedule's intense. I would burn out so quickly if I didn't build in those moments where I'm going in between and picking tomatoes, and then I'm coming back in and I'm traveling the world on Zoom. We're so blessed. I'm so grateful that we get to do this, because of technology. And I grew up without a cell phone. I live in a different world. So see how that expansion, and I'm so grateful for it. Instead of the world being oh my God, the world is ending and technology and AI. Well, AI can help some, but I would rather show up and just be me and not have it perfect, because I don't think people are looking for perfection. I think they're looking to connect. And I think you know this too. They're looking to connect to something expansive that they can hold on to, and maybe a hope or a dream or something they had, a seed, a spiritual seed that's been planted, that they're like, I can do that. What did she do? She lost 90 pounds. She started walking and she just ate she didn't have some big plan. Nope, I didn't. I just woke up before Thanksgiving and said, I'm not doing things the same way. And this is ending now. And I made the commitment that you're going to get healthy. And this is what it's going to look like. Every day you're going to show up. And I ask through the lens of we have lenses that we all hear this information, and everyone's got a different lens. They're all going to process this information differently. My lens was, and I do this every day, does that feel like love? Does that food feel like love? Does that ice cream feel like love? Well, no, but last night it did. Last night the ice cream, we get to pick and choose when we get to a place where, we can have, those treats but every night I was doing a pint of Haagen-Dazs. I didn't even want it. I was going into a food coma. I was in trauma. I was in grief. And when I started to deal with the grief, I thought I was dealing with it, and I was, but my body was storing and unpacking. And I'm going to tell you, that weight was a small price to pay for what my body released. When that weight left, I released pound by pound of flesh, the trauma that I was carrying.
Gosh, there's so much value in what you're sharing. Again, I want to bring back the value of us paying attention to the intuition that we all have within us. I asked you very, very specifically, is that something that you believe does everybody have, or is that something that's available for the select few? And you beautifully were able to answer, that we are all being, in a position to be able to intuitively lean into, is this serving me right now? I love that you phrased it like, am I loving this? Is this loving me right now? Like, that is information. And we're tapping into information that's further than where we are, because everything is leading us down a path. And for the longest time, you've had this incredible gift that today I've only ever known you in your power using your gift. But you beautifully have shared that you didn't always listen. You were, consuming, or you were achieving, or you were moving forward, but not always paying attention to the signs. And now you're teaching people how to be able to shift and listen to themselves. And I think that our intuitiveness is one of our greatest skills and our greatest gifts. But I want to just commend you for a second, because we're in business in the sense that we go into companies, we support them in creating shift or changes. And not every CEO or president or human resources representative who is hiring us to come in and speak or train or to impact someone, they aren't necessarily open to listening to, oh, we'll follow your intuition, or, what's the right decision to make, or, we should be in flow. They're like, no, we have to hustle. We have to move people forward. We have to maximize potential. And you're teaching beautifully that we're all spiritual beings, that we have this incredible gift that's given to us. We can hone it, we can use it, we can ignore it. And if we ignore it, here's my life. Here was the cost of almost 50 years of going through the struggle. I'm intentionally not spending a lot of time in the struggle with you, because we've all got a story. You've got an incredible one. There's so many stories that we can learn about resilience through you, but there's also so many places people can hear those stories. And I want to encourage them to go to your podcast where you openly share. We can just search you by name and find podcasts where you talk about them. I really want to talk about things that I haven't been able to hear you talk about in other platforms, because I know there's just so much depth to what you teach. Behind you, you literally have the word trust on the wall. Trust the process. I tattooed the word trust on my forearm a few years back, because I believe that my lesson in life is to trust in God, to trust in the flow, to trust in the divinity, and not to always know everything that's going to happen, how it happens. You've used the word trust today, I think about 7 or 8 times. I'm losing count now. I would love to know, why is that such an important word for you, and why should people begin to hone trust?
Wow. Again, I'm just going to drop into my truth, my story, the one I know the best. We'll never have a more intimate relationship with anyone than ourselves. I know where I was hiding. I know where I wasn't trusting. I look back on it, the fear of being known, being judged. I think trust is, we start to trust that we're where we need to be. I think that we think if we trust, there isn't going to be any fear. If we trust, there's going to be fear present. And I think we have to upgrade our language. Like you said, we go in and we teach this, and that's too woo woo. And how can I be a psychic? And that, and I did think, and I believe my business manager said, listen, if we do that, you're going to nixay all the Christian organizations that want you to speak. And I'm like, and I was constantly just altering those. I upgraded I am who I am by accepting 1000% who I am, where I am, not hiding, knowing that life is over here on this side of this terror barrier, just the newness of change and upgrading my language, there's going to be fear. And that means I'm doing everything right. If I'm over here, it's not so frightening. It's comfortable. You're building, you're expanding, the ego's protecting. I think over here in the expansion can be really terrifying because we're like, I don't have any idea. I'm like falling or it's expansive. And how do we trust that God, that this is really interesting. I think we want to trust when everything's going great. How do we trust when everything's like we're face planting? I face planted it more times than I care to even share. But I was interviewing a billionaire the other day, and he said this to me. You know what, Dana? By the time everyone is done redoing their research and doing what they need to do, I have already fallen on my face 3 times, come up with a solution, and I've executed. And it's already done. And I thought, that was very similar to how I did my life, but my money story is anchored into, I'm not good with money, so I would self-sabotage. We must listen to the stories, upgrade that language. If you've got that story, you can't keep telling it and build out a life. You will hit your high low, and that's where you'll navigate. That's where you'll navigate. Your waters will never, and to rise higher means upgrade that language. What story are you really telling yourself about your life? Just look at your life. Look at what you did 3 to 6 months ago. Look at where you are now. And what changes have you made? If you've made a ton of changes and you're not do you expect? Are you anticipating change? Did you write it down that this is what I want by this time? Is it realistic? Is it unrealistic? I think all these things matter because when we trust, we really have to release that outcome. I don't know what God has in store for me. I never thought in a zillion years I'd be here. I never thought I'd co-found a cauliflower pizza crust company. I'm passionate about cooking. I love working with vegetables, but I never thought that I would do that. But, it was my story that I created that I'm not good with money that created I called all of it in. And the trusting is that as painful as that company was to exit it, it was exactly what God wanted for me. I was never meant to be there. I was just passing through. And I think we get attachment issues to where we are in this life and we don't want to let go because nothing will be better than that. Oh, there's so much more than that. I've experienced so much more than that. And I can only anticipate that God has a lot more planned for me. And I'm so excited to see what that is. And I have no destination, no pin on the map that says this is where I'm going to be. I didn't know that either. I mean, we can do vision boards. We can do mind mapping. We could do a lot. All the tools. We can do a lot of things to help people encompass and put a blueprint out. But I suggest trust means something that we sit with that expansion and we rebuild a relationship with ourselves. And we dig deep into those stories. And, this is where we call in mentors. This is why we do what we do. Call in people that have experienced it. I would never hire anyone that has not had a big, messy life. Show me how many times you fell on your face. I want to know what you've done with it. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to line up to work with them. I do not want to be called in, and I'm totally unenchanted these days with someone who shows up and everything's perfect and everything is great. I'm just bored. I'm just like, not speaking to me. I don't need perfect. I know what perfect gets me. Perfectionism is where I lived for years.
Oh my gosh, beautiful.
Yeah, I just spun there. Didn't really move the needle forward. I just spun there. And the world loved it. They ate it up. Top lobbyists setting records. I held that identity till a good friend one day. I'll never forget. It was casual. She says, we were sitting in her living room. She says, when you people meet you for the first time, because she had a whole different group of friends. She says, when they meet you, they just love you. And I'm like, oh, that's so great. She said, but do you know that you always lead with, I was a top lobbyist? I'm like, what? My ego kicked in. I was defensive. I don't do that. I hid behind that because then they really didn't get to know me. And then all that power that I presented meant, don't come too close. I'm a friggin' mess behind this. I don't know what to do with it, but I'm never letting you in. And hiding. And I just don't hide anymore. If I can help one person reaches out to you and says, man, I absolutely identified and my life changed and I'm doing this today because of it. Wow.
Gosh, Dana. I could do this for an hour more. We have a few more minutes, and I really want to ask you for some closing thoughts, and you can take it anywhere you want. But I want to touch on a few things that you've just mentioned. One of my favorite topics in the whole world is talking about frequency. We've just been speaking about trust, and that when you're in a state of trust, you shift your energetic footprint. And when you shift your energetic footprint, you're now in the co-creation of your reality. Whereas too many people, as you had beautifully articulated earlier, they're trapped in the fear and their focus goes to the fear. And so there's a snowball effect on all of that. You also spoke into having this guard and this protection up, which is shifting and changing your frequency or your energetic state. I know that you are equally as obsessed with energy as I am. I would love to know from your vantage point, if you could impart one final swift kick in the pants to somebody who's listening to this episode to shift them to take a little more accountability for what is their energetic state, what is their frequency, what is their mood, what is their belief system, what is their trust level. What would be that one leaving antidote that you could give us?
Oh gosh, I'm maybe going to get even more simple. And we've heard it over and over again, but it seems to be the most complicated thing that people can do because it's so stupid simple. And that's gratitude. Just what are you grateful for today to change? Gratitude's at the top. You've got enlightenment, gratitude, love, joy. And, if we're looking at the frequency energetic chart, gratitude it's a high frequency. If you don't know what to do and you're waking up and you've got, just write down. You don't need to do a big meditation practice. Just write down 3 things you're grateful for in the moment. Not, I'm grateful for this life. Break it down. Look at your life. What can you be grateful for? Because I'm going to tell you, you can always be grateful for something. I'm grateful every day. I might not, it took me years to love these legs and the scars and the damage, but I'm going to tell you this. I am so freaking grateful that I can get up and walk. So the days that I think I can't do anymore, it's hot, I'm tired. Nope. I'm so grateful that I have them and they're serving me. So tap into what you're grateful for. We take this life for granted because we become numb. We numb out in a million different areas. But gratitude brings us back into the present moment where everything, our frequency past doesn't need us, future doesn't need us. Our frequency is in the here and the now. And what can we do in the here and the now to raise that and call in what we need? Because that's frequency. It's like, where can I call in what I need? If I'm grumbling and complaining and wore out and it's, oh my gosh, that driver and I hate that. And did you hear Susie over there? And oh my God, Karen, your frequency is there. Look at how you're showing up in your life, who you're talking to, who you're surrounding yourself with. What are you grateful for? Gratitude will shift that immediately and bring your frequency up. And it's so simple.
So simple.
People resist it because it's just like, oh, that can't possibly work. It's too simple. Well, let me tell you, it's a game changer. If we were going to be, if those words game changer had to come in, game changer.
It is. Oh my gosh. I want to put another point on the top of what you said, because we're talking about the frequency pyramid and, we can have joy and love and fulfillment and freedom. Gratitude by all means one at the top, but you exemplify what does it look like to be the very highest frequency resonance, which is 700 times more powerful than any other vibrational frequency on the planet, and that is authenticity. And it's vulnerably, candidly sharing through your book, through this podcast, through other areas or episodes. You're always leading with your stories, grounding that, everybody has a messiness in their life, but that when we hide it, that it owns us, and that when we speak into it, we free not only ourselves, but the people around us. Dana, I know that we could truly do this again and again and again and never run out of things to say. I just want to thank you so much for joining us on the episode today. Where can people find you? I'm going to obviously add in your Instagram, your website into the show notes, the show links. I want to put a link for your book into the show notes. But where would you direct people to best communicate with you?
Well, the book comes out next month. We're doing a release date right now. So we're thinking about 4 weeks. It's done. We're just waiting for that printing process, all the final deets. The hub, I think they can find me everywhere on LinkedIn, but I really probably hang out on Instagram the most. I like to answer my own messages. I think like all of us, we have teams that run everything, but I really like to connect with people. I want them to reach out and tell me their story. And I believe that this universe, I mean, I can't tell you how many people I send to you because I'm like, oh no, this is the hub. He speaks your frequency, because I look at everything as energy and I just navigate. It's just my job it radiates and to share it out there. I just want people to connect, to share, to understand there's so much available to them. There's so much available to them, and they may not know it right now. If they can just like leave that one last spiritual seed, but they can find me out there, connect, book coming, websites there, all the things. Just put in, I think it's the Real Dana Grant out there, and you can find me. Google me. Someone just said, have you ever AI'd yourself? And they said, you have an enormous amount of awards. I'm like, no, I've never AI'd myself. I've never Googled myself. Yeah, technology doesn't really rock my world, but I'm so grateful for it.
Well, I am grateful for you, Dana. I love you so very much. Thank you for joining us on the Empowered Life podcast today. To the audience, I always want to challenge you to do something with the information. When you do something with information, you ground it, you remember it. Turn around and teach something that you learned from today's episode to somebody that is near and dear to you. Tag a friend and share the episode, and then go over and jump on the Dana Grant Show and give her a listen. Again, incredible wealth of knowledge. I love you guys, and we'll catch you in the next episode of the Empowered Life podcast.
If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe so you don't miss out on future content. And we would love your support in leaving us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Make sure to check the show notes for more information on how you can find us online and on Instagram. Now go create an amazing day for yourself, and we'll see you again soon.